Recently, the CEO of YouTube did an interview with Kara Swisher. In that interview, we saw an interesting exchange where the CEO said, Ben Shapiro is going to meet the community guidelines. I don't think you're suggesting that we remove him from the platform, are you? I would, but I can't. No. Ben Shapiro tweeted this. Kara Swisher, I'm glad your son watches my videos. It seems rather illiberal of you to ask YouTube to ban my videos. Susan Wojcicki, I'm pleased that you aren't interested in banning me. You probably shouldn't give in to people who lobby you to ban those they don't like. He then linked to the interview, which I have pulled up and we'll read through. He said, by the way, I wouldn't ask for Kara Swisher's content to be banned even if I could, because that's ridiculous. He links to a portion of the interview and says, he says, Kara Swisher is also deeply perturbed that her son has watched Jordan Peterson videos, and she suggests that Silicon Valley must do something about this big problem. This is actually a nightmare. It's nightmarish where we're headed, where these leftist regressive outlets get direct access to the CEO of YouTube and then start talking about how awful it is that people watch content like Ben Shapiro's, who's got one of the top podcasts in the world, period. He says, hey, Susan Wojcicki, would love to have you on the Sunday special to discuss these and other issues. If you've got time for Recode Decode, perhaps you could spare an hour for one of the top rated shows in the country. That's true, it is. Kara Swisher responded, but we'll get to that. First, I want to pull up the conversation that led to this discussion about whether or not Ben Shapiro should be banned. And it's actually rather complicated. So here's what we have. I'm not going to start from the beginning. Kara Swisher says, humans are not going to be the way you're going to figure this out, but you have to put humans to the test. Talk about this. What could be done? Throughout the conversation, it comes to the issue of recommendations. Susan Wojcicki says, recommendations, for example, we just made a change to how we handle recommendations. Where we have readers, the readers go through and we make sure they're representative from all parts of the US. We publish the guidelines, though those readers then identify a set of videos that they think they might technically meet the requirements of following our community guidelines, but they're close. And there's a lot of content that there's 1% that brushes up against the community guidelines. So what we do is we identify this with a set of them with humans, and then we use machines and machine learning to expand. And based on that, then we are basically very unlikely to recommend that. It's very complicated. Now, earlier this month, we heard that the alternative influence network, of which yours truly is included, is apparently alt-right. It's not, because I'm certainly not. But they said that we weren't being recommended anymore. Well, my recommendations are actually way up, as are Joe Rogan's and many other people that are associated with this group. It would seem that whatever they changed didn't affect me. While others are freaking out claiming conspiracy because their recommendations are down, it's almost impossible to pinpoint what the change is. I've seen some people claim that they're being, de-recommended, and it's a huge issue, and it may be true. It also may be true that some of these people don't post that often. The algorithm changes frequently. You are at the whims of YouTube, and it's important to keep this in mind. Right now, my daily podcast, which is my main channel. Okay, let me back up. YouTube.com/Timcast is a specific channel, and the content there is much more, it's much blander. While I do get emotional sometimes, it's my main channel that represents me doing my general work, which today I talked about the AFL-CIO unions and such. So it's very straight news to a point, and then gets into analysis, and then my opinion, which wraps up. My main channel, it's basically, the easiest way to put it is it's trying to be professional. It's not perfect. But the reason I bring this up is that this content appears as a podcast across all podcast networks, or at least most of them. You have to be independent from YouTube. You cannot rely on YouTube to promote content for you. Are your videos not being recommended? That's too bad. YouTube has no obligation to promote the content for you. You're allowed to post on the platform, and this is a serious conundrum. When you open youtube.com, there's like 15 videos. YouTube is choosing what to show people. If YouTube decides not to show you, you can't really blame YouTube for making that decision. YouTube would probably much prefer to show, happy, family-friendly things, but they're trying to be balanced to an extent. Now look, YouTube does tons of things wrong. They are censorious in certain ways. Monkey Jones will always get a shout out from me because he broke no rules. He was banned without breaking rules. Many people have been banned for this. But the issue of recommendations, in my opinion, don't go on YouTube. Listen, my show that appears on podcast networks, it's between 10 and 15 minutes long each, and there is no promotion of it. No one promotes that podcast. If you go on iTunes or Spotify or Google Podcasts, there's no, you don't open it and then boom, on the front page, there's me. They'll show top podcasts. My podcast is growing, but I have to do my own marketing. YouTube markets for you. Why is it that some of my videos, like my early morning videos, tend to get like 100,000 views on this channel? They actually get more than my main channel because YouTube says Tim's videos, people like them. They listen for a long time. We're going to show it more because it's good for YouTube. If you make content that YouTube likes, it's YouTube saying that they're not going to promote you anymore. And it sucks. It's like losing a deal. And it's really dangerous that we don't know the rules, but it's very complicated. Well, let's get to the point where they talk about banning Ben Shapiro, because I don't want to sit around wasting too much time talking about these issues. They say, Kara Swisher goes on to say, I'll get to recommendations. I have a personal beef with you on that. Okay, I can't wait to hear. My son, who is 13 years old, started watching Ben Shapiro videos, and he's like the gateway drug to the next group. And then it goes right to Jordan Peterson, even though Jordan Peterson is to the left of Ben Shapiro. Then it goes down, and in 3 clicks, he was in neo-Nazi stuff. It was astonishing. And then I had to listen to it at dinner, and I was sort of like, I'm not going to read this quote. She threatened Susan Wojcicki's life in jest. The point is, how much do you want to bet that that Kara Swisher was hearing something that wasn't neo-Nazi stuff? How much are you willing to bet that he was saying something typically like maybe traditional families are good or something typically traditional that isn't neo-Nazi, but Kara Swisher is clearly far left as she thought it was. Kara Swisher got into a discussion with Jack Dorsey. I referenced it on the podcast with Joe Rogan, where she was advocating for more censorship. So clearly, when her son references Jordan Peterson, she starts throwing her hands in the air, shrieking neo-Nazi. I really, really doubt her son was talking about fringe neo-Nazi ideology. She's probably just overreacting, but maybe she was right. So Susan Wojcicki says, okay, here I am. She goes on to say, but it was sort of like, it feels like, come on. As I said, I think you've heard me say this. It feels like all you tech companies have built cities, these beautiful cities, but you decided not to initially put in police, fire, garbage, street signs, and stuff like that. And so it feels like The Purge every night. It was a good joke, but it is, I'm sort of like, and then I got this kid who's like, well, Ben Shapiro's sort of smart. I'm like, no, he's not even slightly. He's clever, but he's an idiot. Well, Ben Shapiro is very smart. He's not the most intelligent person in the world, but Ben Shapiro is clearly successful because he knows what he's talking about, at least to a certain extent. Do I think he's the smartest person in the world? No. Do I think Jordan Peterson is? No. But I think they clearly have a certain area where they focus and understand certain ideas. Ben Shapiro understands culture in a specific way, and he can draw references to culture based on other cultural moments. He's got a very good memory, and you know this because of how quick he is in debates. Jordan Peterson is a psychologist and expert on, psychology. These are people who are smart. But Kara Swisher, who is probably on par with Ben Shapiro, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, how dare you? No, they're cultural commentators. She thinks she's so much smarter than Ben Shapiro, and she has to tell her son he's not. Great. I'll tell you what your kid's going to do. He's going to be like, I don't know, Ben Shapiro's smarter than you, because that's what kids do. Anyway, it's just exhausting, she says, but it has a huge effect on him. Do you feel like the people on a bigger thing, and it's not your total responsibility, Susan, but do you feel like people in Silicon Valley have a sense of this, of the impact they have and are capable of dealing with it, or will regulatory measures just have to come into place? Because it's already starting in Europe. It's starting in California, here with privacy bills. Do you feel like you are all able to do that? She says, we have already made a huge difference and will continue. And that will have a big impact on how our platforms work. And we actually use this analogy of a city too, where we feel that we were initially starting out as a smaller city and people kind of all knew each other on the internet. And then we grew to this major metropolitan city. And our goal, we've really ramped it up. Google has committed to having 10,000 people committed to dealing with controversial content. My God, which we have staffed last year. We have tightened our guidelines. We have made very significant changes in how we handle our policies like the recommendations. So getting to your son, he's lost. No, we can work on your son here. I have a son too, and I get some of these discussions also at the dinner table. I think what you're describing is, and the way we think about it too, look, there's a set of content that has to meet the community guidelines. Ben Shapiro is going to meet the community guidelines, which he doesn't break, nor do I or many others. I don't think you're suggesting we remove him from the platform, are you? I would, but I can't. No, okay. Last time I saw you, I was like, get Alex Jones off that platform. And you're like, well, the community guidelines, and then you got him off. She goes on to say it was the terms of service that got Alex Jones off. But think about this first. I want to say this to Kara Swisher. How do you think your son feels hearing that you're talking about how he's lost on a major national platform with the CEO of YouTube? I'd have to imagine he's going to resent that. I would be so, like, how insulting is that to your kid? I don't know who your son is. I don't know who he watches, but he certainly watches Ben Shapiro, and he respects Ben Shapiro, and he can fact check Ben Shapiro. And you have to recognize that someone who's even 13 years old is not they're not an imbecile. People often treat kids like they're morons. They're absolutely not. Children just lack certain information. There's a difference between cognitive ability, the ability to understand what you are reading, and having an encyclopedia of knowledge stored and experience. Wisdom and knowledge are not the same thing. Your son has the ability to absorb information, probably better than many adults do because kids are better at this. It doesn't mean he's lost or he's stupid or he's like, it doesn't mean young people aren't stupid. And it bothers me so much when adults talk about how they say, oh, kids are so dumb. No, they're not. Kids just don't have the encyclopedic knowledge that you have gained. Their ability to understand is probably the same or better than yours. And him watching Ben Shapiro is good for him. Think about this. You're mad that your son is getting new information, things you don't understand. That's the point of having kids to a certain extent, for them to learn things you didn't, for them to hold different opinions from you and help society evolve. But you don't like what your kid becomes. Typical story. Throughout history, we have heard this. Kids rejecting the opinions of their adults. We're hearing Gen Z is becoming more conservative than the millennials. It's a shift. Anyway, let's get down to, I don't want to go on forever, so let's get down to Kara Swisher's response to Ben Shapiro. She said, I was saying that for me, then obviously said no to her when she asked directly. But make hay out of it if you want, since that's your specialty. And I obviously do not stop my kid from watching either, so stop the loud and inaccurate hand waving. Ben Shapiro said, I directly quoted you and screen capped the entire exchange. I'm glad, though, that you are now clarifying that you don't want to ban those who disagree. She responded, it says I would personally, but no, to her question if I would have her do it. Ben, I was very clear when Susan and I talked about Alex Jones that I thought she should ban him for breaking the rules, but you know that. Isn't it interesting how interpretation of the rules always have this bias? If you are conservative or oppose the dogmatic orthodoxy of these types of people, they will just accuse you of breaking the rules. I got accused of bullying for doing a news report about a white nationalist who lied to the Associated Press. I kid you not. I make videos criticizing anti-Semitism and racism, but because I won't join their tribe and their, push their authoritarian insanity, because I'm willing to allow Ben Shapiro the right to his opinion, they come for me all the same. These people are terrifying. I'm going to leave it there. It's a complicated issue, but we'll stop now. Stick around. I got more videos coming up in just a few minutes, and I will see you then.